Good morning, it's Joyful Christian Hermit. Well, I have a major praise to share with you. And it was very not expected, but I had a phone call from the family member yesterday telling me that she had spoken to her mother on Sunday. Yesterday was Wednesday. But thanks be to God, and told her the truth about the medicines rather than what this hospice nurse had been saying. And her mother, of course, has declined the morphine. But just to add to it, this is mistake number 6 on this hospice worker's part. Lie, misinformation, or jumping the gun in this last case, in this 6th incident. My aunt was sitting in her wheelchair, just for a change of position from bed. She does best in bed, as do I, but for different reasons. So she was, having some breathlessness, just minor breathlessness, because she's used to being in bed. She's 102, and her legs have bothered her, have been painful for years from a surgery, stenosis surgery, that was not diagnosed soon enough. So she had nerve damage in her legs and pain in her legs, but when she would walk, but it's not painful when she's laying down. But she's not, her muscles are depleted, so sitting up caused her, a little breathlessness. And immediately the hospice nurse wanted to medicate her with opioid, but she says, well, there's an alternative that would work, that wouldn't be as much, and told my cousin oxycodone. And I said, no, that's much stronger than morphine. It's 1.5 to 2 times stronger. And I said, what is wrong? My cousin defends this person, or, I think resents me. That's the situation. Didn't want to say, thanks for pointing all these things out. I asked, did you get the list of what doctors in the medical world recommends to remove phlegm, thick phlegm? And they do recommend to thin it. Yes, you can aspirate on it, but it says to monitor the person. Someone be there when they get it thinned, and encourage coughing to get it out. But someone there in case she starts to choke or aspirate. Don't leave her alone while she's, going through this treatment. And there were other things on this list. There's a machine to help coughing if the person gets too weak to cough on their own. You can suction it out. The medical personnel can suction it out. Medications that can be used. Guaifenesin is inexpensive. You can get it on Amazon. That will thin the mucus, the thick phlegm, to help. It's easier to get it looser. A nebulizer with medication. My mother took those treatments. My mother had pulmonary fibrosis and had terrible sputum that she would have to cough up, and I would gently pound her back. She would want me to pound her back while she'd cough, and it would help loosen it and get it out. So there's various means other than, and of course, morphine or oxycodone, any of those, will sedate and suppress the ability to cough. So my aunt was on a trajectory for death. She was on morphine for just 4 days until my cousin went on Sunday. Her hours, she goes on Sunday. But my cousin has health issues and is exhausted. So it's not easy for her to get there. Someone drives her there and wheels her in a wheelchair and stuff. But she did tell her mother the reality of that morphine does not. This was another lie the person made, this hospice worker, that or maybe she's just so ignorant about medications, but shouldn't be in the position of prescribing or advising and administering opioids then. But she told my cousin that the morphine would bring oxygen and blood flow to her brain, and her mind would be more clear. And my cousin had the hospice nurse talk to her mother about the morphine. She said, I don't want to, you go ahead. Knowing that this woman would say this ridiculous statement. People would give babies morphine then. They could be in kindergarten sooner or something, or walk sooner, or be brilliant and speaking sooner if they had such clarity of mind. Athletes would be taking it. We'd all be taking it. Why was I convinced it was Tuesday? I'm on morphine. I should be the sharpest, pencil in the box. But my pain is so strong. Plus, I have no markers other than when Sunday comes. But I have no schedule anymore that I have to follow. I used to better keep track when I would go to physical therapy on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But it doesn't matter now what day it is to me. So, anyway, but no, and other fallacies. 2 months ago, she had told her that my aunt had 2 days to 2 weeks to live and was going to start her on morphine. And of course, that's been long since passed. But my aunt refused. She says, no, I don't want it then. And she refused to the hospice nurse, so went off of it. And it's not, trying to prolong someone's life who's 102. It's doing the right thing. But I didn't expect to ever hear from my cousin again because she wasn't happy with me. And because I sent these things, and I also sent a text that I did not want to be told. If there wasn't going to be action, I did not want to be culpable, that I would call and report this if I knew who to call. One point, I even told my cousin if I called the police and told them what was going on, they would be there in that nursing home. The local police, they're a lovely small town department that cares and wouldn't go for that. But, hospice has such a fine reputation from the past, but you just have to be on guard. I think this hospice nurse is an outlier, and I don't know why she's pushing opioids so much. Part of it might be monetary purposes. For hospice has become a big business. It's not the sort of the sweet volunteer, saintly helping anymore, assisting or kindly. They've got a motive, and it's to make money. And they get, I think I know my cousin told me that she told her she'd been a visiting nurse. And they only need 1 year in that state, 1 year of training in a tech school, little program to become a visiting nurse. You don't have to be an RN, but then yesterday she denied it. And so, but I know she said that the woman had told her she had been a visiting nurse before she worked for hospice. So not a lot of schooling or medical background really in a year course in a school anyone just get into. Take the program, pay the money, and get your certificate. And they pass a little test. So it's not anything too technical. Visiting nurses don't, in general, administer any kind of narcotics, but hospice nurses have great leeway and power. And they are so trusted by the patient and their family in a time of need that they wield that power, life and death. I don't know if it's that with this woman that but she's bound and determined to get her on strong opioids when she doesn't need it. So she says, oh, she's breathless. We should put her on, but then if you don't want morphine, we should do oxycodone. It's not as strong. Well, it's stronger. So, I don't know. See, if it were me, I would have said, no more with you. get me a different nurse, or stop the hospice and have the nursing home do the work. My aunt's paying $11,300 cash every month, so the nursing home could take care of her. And but no, it was because she isn't used to sitting up. She sits on the side of her bed, but not in a wheelchair for quite a bit of time. She was up maybe an hour, so but she wasn't in at anything close to respiratory distress. She wasn't anxious, she wasn't gasping for air or struggling to breathe. So she got back in bed and rested. So good for my aunt to know, but I want to tell you, and you all know probably, it's not easy speaking the truth, especially to those who will take offense, or who you've had things before where the person's cut you off for suggesting something, and for their own benefit after years of trying other things with them. And so that's what did it a few years ago, cut me off for about 4 years or more, and then called last spring. And I was so thankful because, but people are sensitive. My cousin has been through a lot in life, a whole lot. And it wasn't in a time period where people would go get help, but her brother died and her dad left, and he had been in trouble, but his since has passed, and she was with him 3 weeks in his dying process. So I would think she should know, or would have known, and she did immediately when the hospice nurse told her that her mother had 2 days to 2 weeks to live and to prepare for it. So when my cousin got there to visit her mother, went early, went on a Saturday instead of waiting till Sunday, planned to go Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, which was going to be arduous on my cousin's body to do that. She's 77. So, but no, she says, oh, my mother isn't at all, at a point of, my aunt isn't, of dying. So it just, who knows why people do what they do, but we have to be conscious of what people are telling us, and be very careful with truth, and do not let other people mislead, misinform anyone who's vulnerable. And when we speak up the truth and do our research, get your facts and give it back to the person, don't expect thanks either. And you can expect even trouble. But Jesus himself, we're not here if we are nothing to God's all. We are not going to be loved or liked or appreciated, because it's not about us. It's about truth, beauty, goodness, God's righteousness, doing the right thing. So I praised my cousin yesterday for doing the right thing and for handling it. And, I hope and pray she'll stay on it. I personally wouldn't want to have to always be double checking everything the hospice nurse says, but that's what she's going to have to do. And I said, well, she lies. She lies. Oh, no, she doesn't. I said, well, what is it? I said, well, we can call it misinforming. She's misinforming you of facts. Maybe she doesn't know the truth. I said, she doesn't have much education. You said she was of his. Oh, I never said that. So there's this defense. So expect that. You're not going to get patted on the back by other people. They can resent. There's all kinds of reasons why they might resent that you stuck in there for the truth. I told her, I said, this is an answer to prayer, I said, thank God Almighty that you've stopped this, that you told your mother, and that she, of course she's in the right state of mind. She didn't want to choke to death and be on something that was going to suppress her ability to cough and wasn't going to clear her brain so that she'd have a sharper brain, clarity of thinking at 102. Wow, that anybody would want that. So, she good for my aunt. And I did lay it on thick in my text to my cousin about right and wrong, and that she is her mother's protector. That's her job as healthcare representative, her legal job. And that if this ends up with her choking to death, even though they won't prove it, it will be involuntary manslaughter. And I said, you will be culpable as far as I know, but that's up to God. God knows, and God knows all. So even if they wouldn't suspect. I suspect there's lots of involuntary manslaughter going on in nursing homes. Oh, well, they're old. And I think hospice does a lot of this. I read an article where they do morphine, but they're supposed to do it within like the last 3 days if the person dying is in anxiety and respiratory stress or highly anxious and fearful to the point where they're in distress, psychological distress, or tensing, and it's they're struggling against death coming. And that's different. But my aunt wants just a natural, normal death. I've been praying through this time that God would protect her, and that God would just in the night come and take her with him gently. She deserves a peaceful death. She's contributed much in life, and she's been through hell, and she came out positive and doing great things in the community and lovely to other people and to her daughter and her grandchildren. So she's been through the mill, and even did right by a scoundrel first husband. So tried to help, what got her master's, and went back teaching and school counselor plus art teacher to help pay off embezzlement debt to keep him out of prison. And he ended up with someone else on the side, and she found out. So in a cruel way, the woman called. The woman was a couple of years older than my cousin, or his daughter, so, But to his credit, he became sober and later, and apologized to my aunt, and passed on, I think age 76, from cancer. So, he redeemed himself. Praise God. They found Jesus. He and his wife had a conversion. So, how lovely is that? How lovely is that? But, my aunt did go through a lot. And she's a strong person, obviously, very strong. And 102 and 5 months now, so she's a trooper. So thank you for praying, any of you who prayed. I'd called, I texted someone who has a little group that prays, and they prayed, gave them the overview, and I know my spiritual friend in Midwest was praying. So this is wonderful news. And but as far as being the person who, I don't know how people can live with themselves to want an earthly friendship in those circumstances over speaking truth. and being strong against what was going on. And we always need to choose God's truth, beauty, and goodness. Right is always right. And I don't think that I present things that well. I get very intense because I'm sensitive. I'm, a sensitive. I see things, I sense it deeply, very deeply, and I react deeply then. And that's probably very off putting. I've prayed, that I could, you know, tone it down, but it's so. See, I know what will happen to the soul of anyone involved in something like that. The hospice nurse, I pray for her soul and for her to stop this. I'm sure she doesn't realize it at this point. I even had a thought yesterday that she might have sociopathy, which is sort of they are so used to telling the untruths, lies, that they begin to believe it. And she has some kind of a motivation. Either she's bored and likes drama and wants more action and likes the power of medicating people. I don't know. Some kind of a bugaboo going on. Or else she's just not very bright, not very educated. Or so ultra overly compassionate that a little breathlessness and she wants to give someone oxycodone for it. It's not going to help breathlessness other than sedate the person so they can't breathe well. Won't get much oxygen and will zone out and die sooner. I did read a statistic that once a person is put on, an elderly person is put on morphine, they usually die within 18 days. So it's definitely meant for very end of life, very end. And when a person is in severe pain or severe respiratory distress, not coughing, not a little breathlessness because you're doing something you're not used to doing and your muscles aren't up for it. So, yeah. But, I told my cousin that it's always good to be able to, as far as we know, face God as clean as possible, to have our souls as clean as possible. And this is a big thing out of the way now, as long as she keeps up. And I know she's not well. My cousin isn't well and is exhausted, and this is difficult. Going there, dealing with it. She has a personality clash with her mother for years, so it's hard. But she loves her mother underneath, see. But it's just another, maybe like my eldest daughter. Doesn't like me, but she loves me in her own way, So it's, we have to just try to understand everyone. And I told my cousin, I said, had you not done this, done the right thing, I said, I want to tell you that I would still love you and wasn't going to judge you, because I said I didn't want you to cut me off, because there's more to life than, it isn't a matter of just cutting people off. But especially relatives, family members, I don't think, no matter what, love supersedes the wrongs we do. I hope that's forgiveness. And I just wanted to make sure that that if I wasn't going to be able to help in any way, I did not want to be party to this at all, to the wrong. So all's well that ends well. And but understand, this is really hit me that those who are more sensitive and have perception given them by God to see things, and God give assignments, sort of like with the various priests I've encountered, that it's like, oh my goodness, And the one priest who was really doing awful things, I found out from him later, two other people knew. Two women, other women. One was a therapist, clinical psychologist woman, and she never reported it, and neither did this other one. I didn't expect the other one to, but a therapist, they would know the danger of these prepubescent and pubescent boys. So that's what did it to me. For me, why I realized this was getting bad. It wasn't just his own problem. At first, God kept revealing more and more to me. So there was no way I could let that go. I just wish I'd called the police instead of the diocese. Because even though all the 2002 had been passed and all of the upgrades, the diocese never included the police in this situation, in the one that I reported, and they should have been included. So, not good. So, if it would ever happen again, I would call the police and inform the bishop. Both. Probably the police first. So, because we're not on this earth to be loved, liked, or appreciated. Not if we are nothing to God's all. Not if we have died or dying to ourselves. I'm in the process, because this caught me up, and I didn't realize how much, I realized, this can sting. And realize, no, I'm not, that's not my job. It's not, we don't do things or live based on people liking and loving us. I mean, we do our best. And ultimately, we would hope that people would love and like it if we saw something wrong and mentioned it to them and put it upon them that, I don't think you see this, but this isn't good and you're involved. And you're the one responsible. So please try to do something to correct it. Most people would, oh wow, and I didn't realize it was so serious. That's why I wrote, this is involuntary manslaughter. And at that point, it was attempted. The aunt hadn't choked to death yet, but it was a matter of time. She was going to, from having her coughing reflex suppressed and nothing done about the thick phlegm that accumulates. So and still nothing done about that, but at least she's not sedated. But it's the reaction to the list that I sent my cousin. She says, well, that was 2017, I noticed. Surely they have better methods now. Is that And she wasn't going to give in an inch that anything was worthwhile. So that wasn't passed on to this nurse. The nurse should know how to get the phlegm out, the various ways that are out there in the medical world. I Googled it and found articles on it and lists, medical lists of what to do, and even this coughing machine, a machine that assists a person to cough. And I know from my mother what they used to help get it out and what they did. They suctioned and did different things. So it's something to face, and we have to make a choice as Christians And my cousin's a Christian, but we have to understand there's Christians at all levels. And situations come into our lives, mine too, where I think or say or want to do some, think some unchristian thoughts, or don't want to do the right thing at times. I'm in a quandary right now about, pushing my body so much and denying myself more, I think, what God wants of me. I've had a dream. It's for a different video, but I just wanted to share this wonderful news. Thank you for the prayers. Prayers are powerful. And I didn't want to involve anyone who knew me, but I did the two people who I knew would pray when it got down to the last bit. And my aunt on the morphine then I explained to two close, very private people, the one with her little group, not even near connected to any of us. And I think their prayers were massively helping, because it was the next day or 2 days later, that my cousin called. So anyway, God is great, and goodness and truth is always the right thing. I was thinking of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's letters from prison and his book that he wrote, published posthumously. He was killed in Auschwitz. He was Lutheran, but he spoke out against the Nazi regime. And his title of the book is The Cost of Discipleship. So there's a cost to being Christian and a risk, always. And the only risk is people not liking, loving, or appreciating us. And that's really a small thing compared to heaven or hell. I remember, maybe earlier on, a year or so ago, I talked about, how every step we take in life, every thought we have, is either a step or a thought or a word spoken toward heaven or toward hell. There's really no true in between. It's an either or in a Christian's life. And it doesn't matter what other people think. If they judge us rightly or wrongly, God knows, and Jesus is our judge. And I've even, thought people on the other side in heaven, they know. And so, that should impact us on our thinking. Keeping grudges long after someone's dead even, or resentments, or not forgiving others. It's a blight on us, really. And if we think, well, they're gone, oh, good, I can do what I want, I can think what I want about them, say whatever, well, we think we're free and we can, and they don't know anything about it. And no. If they're in heaven and they have divine union, but they are so loving and so pure, they love and they forgive. It doesn't matter. But still, they know. So, and I think it's important for us to recognize that. It should double check us all the time on our thoughts. We can get away with it some on earth, most of the time. Although people suspect or sense, I sense things in others. There's a woman, a friend of my daughter's, who, up until recently, but then I spoke with her and it came out, she really doesn't like me. And at first she would give this look, and it would, I know all about you kind of look. And it was a reality, I sensed it, I picked it up. I've prayed for her, but I sort of stay clear. And I pray that my daughter gets some other friends to be her best friend. Although maybe the woman's true to my daughter or whatever. But, she's got a thing for me and for me a little bit. And that's a shame because I wouldn't for her, but it does sort of put me on guard, to say the least. I wouldn't trust the person. So, myself, see. So even on earth, we can sense things, especially if we're sensitives. So, pray for people, love them, forgive them. But move on living our life, but accept that we are not here to be loved, liked, and appreciated. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Right and goodness, truth and beauty, doing God's will. That's what matters. Love to you all, and a prayer for Gray Rocking, one of our viewers. And this is a warning from her. She was driving early this morning and was bought bad gas. So she got into car trouble in heavy semi-truck traffic. Very dangerous. And she sent a comment asking prayers that she would get to her destination safely. Her car was sputtering and not working right. It could stop any time out on the freeway. So be on the alert. People are selling bad gas. It was a thing several years ago, and evidently it's back now. People trying to cheat with cheap gas, add water to it or whatever, and sell it. And then your vehicle doesn't work. And she wants prayers also that her vehicle isn't damaged because of this, having bad gas in it. So pray for Gray Rocking, please, and for anyone, and for conversion for those who do this, who are so greedy that they add water or other things to the gas that they sell and cause damage to people's cars and potential terrible accidents. So onward and forward into the work we have in the world. Lots of praying and being alert. And pray, love, forgive, and live our lives according to God. Much love.